Recovery gave me the feeling of being all right with myself enough to be able to look at you square in the eyes and mean what I say when I say it.
The 90 podcast is back again. Bing, bang, boom, baby. Episode 9 is your ego is not your friend. We have to stay away from pride. We have to stay humble. We have to have humility. The leaders among us must be servants. Episode 9 coming at you like a stick of dynamite. Let's go, baby. Hey, welcome back, family, to the 90 and 90 podcast, the internet's gateway to sobriety. I'm Monte Mansfield, your host, the local neighborhood hope dealer, and I'm not selling dope. I'm selling hope, baby. Hey, I love you guys. I love our amazing, awesome, caring, loving, wanting to change their life subscribers. We got to continue to get the algorithm dancing, baby. Get the algorithm moving and grooving. So we got to like, subscribe, and we got to smash that bell, baby.
Smash, smash, smash.
Today's episode, we got the amazing Bryce Pattee, over 3.5 years sober off fentanyl, heroin, and meth. He's continued to be the light in the dark. Your ego is not your amigo. We got to be able to stay humble, and we got to be able to be a leaders among us must be servants. Stay in that servant attitude. I'm so thankful to hear Bryce's experience, strength, and hope. So let's just get started. Let's start moving and grooving with the show. How's it going, Big Bryce?
Oh, man, good. Grateful to be here.
Man, super. Whoa.
Oh, gotcha, good morning. Johnny in the sky up here, leftover cannon from the gender reveal party down in South Bay at my niece's quinceanera. Low on fuel, gotta go. See you in Alano.
Hey, see you at the 6:30 Alano Club, Life After Dope. We need some people there. Let's go, baby.
6 p.m. 6 p.m.
Awesome. 6
Any
p.m.
potential
Life
viewers,
After Dope Alano Club.
Saturdays, 6
All right.
p.m. 4861 Cash Street. Come on down. We'd love to see you.
I love it. I've known you now the last couple years, and you've seen me grow as a person. I've seen you grow
Certainly
as a person, and I'm just super proud of you. I want you to know that, man. So
Thank you, man.
I like to start from the beginning. So I know that drugs do not discriminate. Wherever you're at on this planet, no matter how your childhood was, if it was good or if it was bad or whatever you're doing in your life, that when you start to put drugs first, it takes you to institutional jails or death. But let's just get started, man. How was your childhood?
It was good, man. It was good. You know, I grew up here in sunny San Diego. I had two loving, caring parents. My folks were both gainfully employed. My pops worked at the post office. He had a good career there. My mother, she worked for San Diego Unified School District. So I was pretty well supported. You know, I grew up and I kind of got into skateboarding and stuff, and that was my thing. One thing I always like to touch on, though, is I always had this feeling of not being a part of, you know. I was an only child, and I might attest some of it to that. I don't know how much I buy into that psychobabble about that kind of stuff, you know, like the psychology aspect. But, you know, being an only child, I feel like relating to people was a little different, right? And, you know, while I did come from a loving family, I wanted to find love in other places, right? And what that led me to do was a pattern of people-pleasing behavior, kind of. Yeah. So it started off, you know, when I started skateboarding, I started feeling at home, right? I started feeling like I'd found my people, right? In turn, you know, if you're hanging around the skate park being a youngster, you know, 10, 11 years old, running around there, you know, you kind of start getting into some things, you know what I mean? There's a lot of fun to be had there.
Yeah, so skateboarding and being around the skate parks and stuff, what was the first drug that you started messing around with?
Reefer.
That's right.
Yeah, man. So some of my buddies, you know, they were getting into it, you know, and I was like, oh man, that's like, you know, taboo. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So I got pretty stoked on that, and yeah, I started smoking weed, and it picked up pretty quick, you know, to an everyday thing. It took me a little bit more, like another year or two, to really get into alcohol, but when I did, man. So one thing about my family, while my folks are absolutely great people, despite what I'm about to mention, we got that hereditary alcoholism addiction gene like no other, right? Yeah. When you look down my dad's side of the family, boom. It's not one of these skip a generation ones. It goes straight down, right? So when I first started drinking, you know, the weed didn't really I was trying to alter my state of mind very frequently, but that alcohol, something about it, man, when it touched, it was time.
Yeah.
It was on, man.
Yeah, you're able to escape. You're able to be somebody else, you know. Sometimes, like you said, you know, you're trying to fit in, you know. The alcohol ends up being able to make you turn into like the kind of the person that you want to be and things like that.
Oh, totally, man. You know, all the fear of socialization, the fear of other people, the feeling uncomfortable about myself, the feeling less than, all that was gone as soon as I started drinking. But not only was that gone, dude, but that feeling of sitting all right with myself regardless of social situations, I was doing this at home, man. You know what I mean? I was selling weed already at the time by the time I started drinking. So, I mean, shit, I'd be like little 13, 14-year-old Bryce, dude, and I'd be out there selling some weed, and I'd have some dudes who were over 21 who would buy weed from me, right? So I'd pay those guys with some weed to come out. You know, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll shoot you an extra gram if you come buy me a bottle, you know?
Yeah.
And I'd do that kind of stuff, you know what I mean, to make sure I could have booze every night. And, you know, my buddies, they were all like, oh, yeah, Friday, Saturday, let's get trashed. And I'm like, bro, it's fucking Tuesday. Let's get us cracking, man. You ready or what, dude? Yeah,
you're ready to go, baby.
Oh, yeah, man. And so those signs of where this was going were there early. Would you have been able to tell me that at the time? Absolutely not, man. No way. You know what I mean? There wouldn't have been any way I would have been receptive to hear about the direction things were going. Hell, the first day I smoked weed was actually after a Red Ribbon, you know, Red Ribbon Week, guys.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone remembers that. Yeah, the Dare. Yeah. And it was the Friday of Red Ribbon Week, and they had this big blowout in the auditorium at my school where they're like, you know, they got a paint buckets that they're drumming on, and somehow that's supposed to keep you from wanting to do dope, dude. But I was just looking at my buddy giggling the whole time, like, oh man, we're gonna go smoke weed after school, dude. It's gonna be rad. And my buddy had a video of me on his phone in the canyon with a joint, and I was like, oh man, my first doobie ever, dude. And
that's awesome, bro.
It was Red Ribbon Week.
Red Ribbon Week, yeah. Dare. I wish they would have said it was drugs are really expensive, because I spent a bunch of money on drugs. I'll tell you that, man.
Oh yeah.
28 years, right? 28 years I've smoked weed and I drank after games, and then when amphetamine touched my body, it was a game changer. It changed my whole life. I tell people I was 28 years. I was trying to chase the dream of being a professional athlete. I put amphetamine in my body, and it literally took me in a whole nother direction. What was the first hard drug that you tried?
So I kind of messed around with some club drugs. I don't know if I'd consider that a hard drug, but the first one we started having coming around was ecstasy, those Pokeballs back in the day. They were rampant in my area. Lots of young kids just walking around totally off the E, just walking around the neighborhood. It wasn't like partying. We didn't take these drugs to party, man. We'd walk around the neighborhood. We'd take them. A lot of guys would take them all night while they were broke into cars. So it was almost like the way people would act on speed, but they were doing ecstasy instead, man.
Wow, yeah.
And they'd like fry himself on it, going for like 3-4 days straight, you know, not even like, and so yeah, I started messing around with some of that. Then you know, hallucinogens, and then the first like hard drug would have been Xanax.
Xanax, right?
Xanax, yeah. My buddy, he was getting all these pills mailed from Pakistan. I was selling weed for him. The weed money wasn't coming in the way I wanted. He's like, oh yeah, sell some of these pills. Yeah. And I ended up eating a lot of them, but I ended up selling a lot of them too, man.
I think I heard you say one time that when Xanax comes into play, armed robbery happens.
Oh man, dude. It has happened. Yeah. It didn't end up well for me.
Yeah.
It didn't end up well for me at all. But with Xanax comes stupid decisions for sure.
Yeah.
I remember
being on Xanax and like waking up in the morning and being like, what the heck? Like there's a human being next to me in my bed, you know, just lifting up the cover, hoping it's a woman, you know what I'm saying? Not remembering anything about the night before, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I also remember being on the Xanax, like I was having a good time and it was fun, but then when I would wake up in the morning, I couldn't remember anything that happened, you know? It's a gnarly drug, man. Xanax is a gnarly drug. So when did meth come into play or heroin?
I didn't really like meth, man. I think I got ADHD or something, or I got one of those. And you hear some people talk. I never really got it diagnosed because I wasn't interested in taking amphetamines. But I got some sort of serious focus issue, right? Yeah. And for some reason, my mind's always going. And you put some downers in it, and it quiets my mind enough that everything else can go up to speed, right? Yeah. It takes away that barrier that's keeping me from moving the way I want to move, right? Yeah. And that's how I felt with alcohol. That's how I felt with Xanax. What happened with heroin, man, was I was selling a lot of weed, Xanax, ecstasy, and cocaine. And a lot of the people I was selling to, you know, when we turned 18, they could go to the dispensary or they went away to college. So all of a sudden, man, I'm out of a job, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm out of a job. So what are we gonna do, man? I saw my buddy in the neighborhood, and he was making some decent money selling heroin. And I was like, oh, okay, this is the logical route to go. So I actually started kind of selling it before I started using it.
Okay.
And but I'm an addict, man.
Yeah.
And the second I can't find some Xanax, I had like a stressful day where some guns were pulled, and it was just a really sketchy situation. We're in a neighborhood, and we were there with somebody else who was affiliated with someone who wasn't from that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And somebody came and checked him, and he said where he's from. Someone pulled a gun, and then luckily the guys we were there to buy drugs from diffused the situation. They're like, no, he's with us.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'd never been around anything like that. I hadn't experienced anything with like that actual genuine street violence, and I was like panicking, man.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get myself to calm down. Even when we're back in my nice little quiet suburb of San Diego, I'm drinking and I'm smoking reefer, dude, and I can't find any Xanax. I can't find any Klonopin. Can't find my go-to to feel calm.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, the Xanax was my drug of choice.
Yeah.
From probably about like 15 to 18, that was my drug of choice. The weed and the alcohol were a constant. But, what I loved was that Xanax,
Love the Xanax.
And I couldn't get myself to calm down without it. And I got this big ball of heroin looking at me, dude. And I'm just like, lit it up. And, like next 6 years were history.
Yeah, wow, man. Yeah, during those 6 years, I have to ask you, because we go to jails, institutions, or death. That's where our addiction takes us. And we're sitting here and we're talking and we're alive, Do you have any stories with Johnny Popo?
Oh, yeah, man. Dude, lots of experiences with the law. First time I actually got arrested, they raided my spot. So I was renting a room from this nice family, and they were kind enough to rent me a master bedroom in their house. And me and my buddy were living there, and we were doing our thing, and there was heroin dealing going on, and we were doing it for a while, and we weren't really being cautious in any way, shape, or form. And we knew the law was coming, man. So I got a funny story I'll tell you. Somebody came over, somebody I used to buy drugs off of, and they were, and I hadn't heard from them for a few months, and they used to have the best price, so I was really interested to hear from them again.
Yeah.
And I used to drive a nice Audi, used to always go down to Mexico, come back with lots of good stuff, and like have good prices. And he was like connected down in Chula Vista. I was like, oh yeah, this guy's cool. I'm glad he's hitting me up again, because I really need to be in touch with this guy, because he can help me make some money.
Yeah.
So, but he had known for a while that we had like a lot of money sitting there locked up in this cabinet. And we had firearms, but we had no ammo for those firearms because none of us could legally buy ammo.
Yeah.
So we were sitting there, and he came over, right? And he thought we still didn't have ammunition, like we hadn't from 3 months prior, but we had since obtained ammunition,
Yeah.
So my buddy's sitting there with the shotgun under his feet and like a bunch of shells right there.
Yeah.
And while this guy's coming in, and he's all trying to act cool, talk to us, and he's pulling his dope out of a cigarette pack.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but it was like little dope, not big dope. I wanted the big dope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm watching him, I'm like, all right, so what's going on, man? He's like, oh man, you guys still got that shotgun with no rounds? I'm like, no, it's fully loaded at my buddy's feet. Yeah. And and he's like, oh man. And then all of a sudden the tone totally changes, and he forgot something. He forgot his cigarettes in the car.
Yeah.
But I just watched him pull his dope out of the cigarette pack, right?
Yeah.
So he leaves and he goes down, and I'm standing by the window. I have this window that's overlooking the street, and I'm trying to find a vein at the same time, and I'm looking out in the street, and I'm looking to see when his Audi's gonna drive by, to see like, where the fuck is this guy? It's been like 20 minutes since he walked out.
Yeah.
And then the cops drive by, and they flash a spotlight into my window, where I'm sitting in the windowsill with a needle hanging out of my arm.
Yeah.
And they get on the radio and say, put the needle down. And then I go, I'm diabetic. So yeah, awesome. And then since then they kept driving by, flashing the light on the house until they finally raided us. And yeah, it was fun stuff, man.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. I know that.
That was my first time right after that getting into recovery too. Or first attempt at it.
First attempt at recovery.
Yeah.
So what was we talked about that, like, I know I got sober right before fentanyl. We all know fentanyl's a killer. You know what I'm saying? It's killing people. It's like the obsession now, right? The obsession, it like used to be like manslaughter, like it tried to kill you, but now we're dealing with an obsession that's a straight murderer. So the obsession that is like trying to take you out to use just one more is killing people at an alarming rate. And we all know that once we put the drug in our body, it activates the allergy and we can't stop. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
What was like the last day, if we can get, and then we'll get more into the recovery side, like what was like the last day of your addiction when it was just so bad you finally had that gift of desperation and you wanted to turn your life around?
I just got new charges. I was on probation. I'm sure and I think my probation was revoked pending it was misdemeanor stuff, but it was still like not looking good because I still had previous felonies I was on paper for, and so that wasn't too hot. And then my little manipulation method for getting around legal consequences was that I had good post office insurance from my dad, and I would use that to go to nice rehabs and then put up in rehab like, I'm changing my life, Your Honor. And that was what I did at the time, you know. So really, I didn't come in wanting to get clean. I came in wanting to dodge legal circumstances, right? And that's what I was doing when I came in this time. But I moved into this awesome sober living in Pacific Beach, and they had me on a 7-day blackout because I manipulated some stuff to avoid inpatient because that's the kind of addict that I am. And they took me off this blackout at I think 5 days, right? And then I walked out and I was so excited. I was on this like weird little pink cloud. I'm like, dude, I'm living in Pacific Beach, man. I got my freedom. This is awesome, you know. I walked out of there with the intention to give out some bagels that were going to go stale in the next day or two to some homeless people. That's like how like weird mania I was on this pink cloud. And I walked by a liquor store and ran in and grabbed 30 beers and stole them because I didn't have any money. And while I'm walking in, I'm just like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, you got these consequences, you know? Your setup is good. There's nothing to complain about with your current setup. Why are you walking in there to get those beers, Bryce? And I couldn't turn around. My feet were doing the work. You know? My feet were doing the work to get in there, and then I was stealing, and then I left. I'm like, what are you doing, Bryce? But the ball was rolling. I can't stop it when that ball's in motion with my addiction, man. And so that night I ended up getting real drunk. I got in a car with my buddy and some other guy who was kind of a little bit going through it in the head. And he grabbed the wheel of that car and smashed us into the back of another parked car. And, then we're running from the police because my buddy's drinking while he's driving. And he's already got past DUIs. And I'm running from the cops, man. And I'm thinking like, man, I was in a fucking sober living this morning. All of this was so unnecessary. This is not necessary, man. You know what I mean? I'm already in hot shit with the law, and now I'm running from the police again just for the alcohol, man. I didn't even do heroin that day, bro. I just smoked some weed and drank, dude. But that's the unmanageability of my disease, man. It's not about one substance or another. When I pick up any, that's what happens. And that was the last time I got loaded.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Let's talk about how grateful you are. I talked about how I never saw fentanyl. You talk about how you got clean and sober right before fentanyl came up. How thankful are you for this?
I'm alive.
Amen.
I'm alive because of this. I missed fentanyl by, I believe, about 2 months, I want to say. Because fentanyl was starting to come around a little bit right when I got clean, And, there's starting to be some deals happening, and people were like, oh, man, where's the blues at? Because that's what they were calling those little fake, they still got them, the fake 30s.
Yeah, with the M on them.
Yeah, and I thought that was some kook shit. I liked slamming heroin. I liked using needles, and I liked putting heroin in them, and that's what I like to do. And I thought it was some kook shit, but about 2 months after I got clean, everybody consciously made the decision that I knew to switch from heroin to fentanyl. The dealers weren't selling heroin anymore; they were selling fentanyl, and that's where the demand was, And I missed that by maybe about 2 months because I remember checking in with some people in the streets for about what was going on out there, and they're like, "Dude, no, we don't do heroin anymore. It's all the powder and the blues." I'm like, what do you mean the powder and the blues? It's crazy. And and when I look at it now, a lot of those people are dead now. A huge amount. Well, maybe in the years of me using heroin, like a couple people died, and when people would overdose, it'd be like, fuck you, man, you overdosed at my place, you brought the cops here, what the hell? And it's like you only overdosed if you didn't know what you were doing, was the running feeling going on. It was that, like, if you overdosed on heroin, it's because you didn't know what you're doing. And then all of a sudden you see dudes who've been doing dope for years and years and years dying from smoking this stuff. Not even slamming it. And before it was pretty easy to rationalize doing dope again and not dying, because it was like, hey, if you know what you're doing, you're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, take it easy. Do a tester first. Do a tester shot before you shoot your actual shot. Like, maybe smoke a little bit of it, see how it is, and then do your shot. And if you didn't do that, well then, man, you're reckless, and it's kind of your fault you overdosed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, this fentanyl stuff, there ain't no rhyme or reason to this shit, man. I know dudes who have been doing dope for 15, 20 years who died from fentanyl, man. And that first year that fentanyl was around, man, it was nonstop, dude.
Yeah.
It was nonstop. I lost count. In my first year in recovery, I lost count of about like 45 people I knew that died.
Wow.
Man, my gratitude for not being around when that happened is immense, because I am thoroughly convinced that a guy like me would not have lived through it.
Yeah, 100%. I know that whenever I relapse and activate the phenomenon of craving, bro, I want to do a bunch of drugs,
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that back in my addiction, right, when I would go into a house and I would see heroin addicts, they would be smoking the tinfoil, just hitting it. Could you imagine walking into a house now and everyone's smoking and they're falling out and they're dying? And it's like these young kids, they almost like, they don't realize like what they're really messing with, that like they're celebrating 30 days sober and then you're burying them 30 days later. You know how many candle lights I've been to over the last 2 years or what? And it's just super, super sad, man. And I'm super thankful. And I'm thankful. I know I'm thankful for you to be able to get sober right before the fentanyl scene, because it's an absolute murderer, because we suffer from that obsession, When you went into treatment, what did you, to our audience, to somebody out there that's really thinking about treatment, what was your mindset going in? Like a lot of people like to say like, I'm going to give it 2 years and see how I feel, and then I'll continue to stay sober. And that actually works for them. For me, I was at a gift of desperation and I had to have a new way of life. That's what got me sober. Like I had no reservations coming into treatment. And plus I went to jail and I got locked into the Salvation Army, but I know you went to private pay treatment, so you could walk out at any time. What ended up being able to keep you there?
So I was in insurance funded treatment, but private insurance funded treatment, but I was not really like, if I left there, I was in big shit.
Okay.
If I left there, I was going to be in big shit this time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then I caught more charges in my early recovery as well, because I didn't let go of some of the lifestyle stuff off the rip. Mm-hmm. I kept living the same lifestyle while not using drugs, while in treatment in sober living, that ended up with new charges for me too. Mm-hmm. So what happened very quickly, and my mentality when I came in was, I'm here to regroup. Mm-hmm. I'm here to get my PO off my ass. I want to get back to checking in once a month so I can fake some shit. Mm-hmm. I need to get some cash up. Mm-hmm. Because my money's messed up right now. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of need to regroup a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to be there until I just wasn't being supervised as hard by the law. Mm-hmm. That was my only motivation, really. Mm-hmm. And I was going to take advantage of the time to kind of get some money up and, make sure I had some money to get started again when I went back out. Mm-hmm. And that was my mentality.
And then where was the point where you said, hey, man, you started to feel joy. You started to like who you were becoming, and you started to decide that you really wanted to go hard for the sobriety?
I went to, there wasn't one marking point, but a big one that was the first right decision I made was the treatment center I was at was taking us to meetings. So I went to a meeting, right? And I saw a guy up there, and he was sharing his experience, strength, and hope. And I knew that guy. And last time I'd known him, he'd been living in my buddy's garage, my buddy's parents' house's garage, hiding out from his parents. My buddy was sneaking him into his garage to live there. And he was selling heroin. He was using heroin. And so he was sharing his experience, strength, and hope. And I took a look at this guy and I said, man, I think I knew this guy if he was like 50 pounds more sucked up and looked like a lot more out of his mind than he does now. And it turns out I did know that guy. And he had some time clean. And he'd been working the program. And I had a bullshit sponsor at the time, one of those guys that when the treatment center asks you who it is, I'm like, oh, yeah, so-and-so's my sponsor. I have a sponsor. I was sly. I was a real sly guy, huh?
Yeah.
So, but this guy came up to me and said, hey, I'm going to be your sponsor. I just said, all right.
Yeah.
I kind of knew right then that from past experiences in rehabs that while I'm there, it's going to be easier if I'm going to the meetings, and it's going to be easier if I'm trying to get with it.
Yeah.
Because if I just stay in my same mentality, I'm going to bounce, and then I'm going to be in more legal shit.
Yeah.
And so I just had the willingness to say yes. And when he started telling me to do stuff, I just said yes. I didn't have to be stoked on working the steps. I didn't have to be stoked on having a sponsor and meeting up with him once a week. I just had to do it, regardless of how I liked it. And that works.
Yeah.
That works. If you do the work, regardless of how you feel about doing the work, and you genuinely do the work, It still works.
It still works. Yeah, I love that, man. See, I got clean at 37 years old, and at that time, man, I thought like life had passed me by. I was like, I literally was sitting in treatment, and I was like, man, I'm gonna be working in a warehouse my whole life. And God has taken me on this amazing journey in the last 3 years and 4 months, man. He's turned my whole life around, and I'm doing so many amazing things because I'm at service, you know. Like my ego is now put aside, you know, and I'm now a servant, you know, and that's the attitude that I've taken up, man. I know you're younger. If you could talk to our audience, someone that's younger out there, the benefits of getting clean and sober at a young age and how you have your whole life ahead of you, man.
Well, I had a few felonies when I came in, man, and since then I've gotten them expunged.
Awesome,
the court can take a look at that and say, hey, man, so this guy was using drugs for X amount of years, but he's been clean for a few years now, too. And it looks like he was somebody who's trying to get their life back on track, and that was pretty cool, man. Also, these days, you don't get the opportunity to live long using dope out there.
Amen.
Man, the fentanyl's in everything, dude.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could be using meth, there could be fentanyl in it. You could be using coke, there could be fentanyl in it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get to grow old and be a dope fiend these days.
Yeah.
It's a luxury we don't have. So, you know, and it sucks because I got to be put in a position, I got to go through enough stuff where I came in and out for a while before it clicked. But that opportunity is not there for people these days to come in and out. They'll probably die before they get it if you're not taking this very seriously while you're given the chance, you know. When your higher power, whoever that may be, decides to give you the chance to get a few days together, dude, you never know when you're going to get that opportunity again, man. And there's no rhyme or reason when I pick up a drink or drug about how I'm going to get back.
Yeah.
You know, there's like all bets are off on how long it's going to take me to get back if that happens and if I will.
Yeah, they say you might have another relapse, but do you have another recovery?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Once you activate the obsession, I know I cannot stop until I'm in the back of a cop car. One thing that recovery's given me is purpose. It's given me this amazing purpose to spread the good news, and I don't have to get paid to do it, and it fulfills me from the inside out. I know that a big fear of mine when I was 37 years old and I saw my mug shot and I couldn't believe how bad I looked. A big fear of mine was being, 55 years old and sitting there on my deathbed and realizing that I chased everything wrong on this planet. You know what I mean? Now I feel like I'll be 90 years old going, let's go, baby.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And knowing you, Monty, I'm sure you will be.
Thank you,
I'm
bro.
sure you will be, man.
I love you, bro. I love you, man.
Love you too, man.
Today's episode is brought to you by Freshwater Flakes. If you want your fish to have good color and good skin, this is the way to go. Freshwater Flakes. Just an amazing thing to help your fish be nice and healthy. You can pick it up at the local pet store. Now let's get back to the podcast. So let's talk about the big book. I have to bring it up. It's a very important part of recovery. And I know that you're in the NA rooms, right? So
I did AA my first year.
Okay, so you did AA.
So I did both AA and NA my first year.
Okay, cool. For me, at the Salvation Army, you get AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, the Lord. You get mixed with everything. I believe that for me, my recovery, like I'm a Celebrate Recovery guy, but the AA book, the doctor's opinion, made a lot of sense to me because we suffer from an obsession that tries to take you out. To use one more, it activates the allergy, and then the phenomenon of craving happens, and then I can't stop. Like I say, the allergy doesn't make you break out. It makes you break out in handcuffs. You know what I mean? So
yes, sir.
Do you agree with that? And did the big book help you out in any way?
Oh, it helped me tremendously, man.
Okay.
It helped me tremendously, and it still helps me to this day. Just because I work a program in Narcotics Anonymous doesn't mean I don't use every tool that's in front of me, man.
Yeah, I love that.
Dude, I'm a hopeless dope fiend, dude. I really gotta I have to use everything I have because, I know the topic is we're going to be moving into humility, and my humility is recognizing how close I am to another drink or drug, and that by no means am I home free right now. I may have 3.5 years in recovery, but I'm by no means home free. And a big thing that I connect with is the literature. The literature you can take with you wherever you go. You can't take these days with internet connection, you can take a meeting with you wherever you go, right? Yeah. But hell, man, I was just offshore for a bit, and I didn't have service. Yeah. And I was out there for a week, and the way that I connected with the program in that time is with the literature. Yeah. I was reading the basic text, the Narcotics Anonymous literature, but that can come with you wherever you go. And when you've built a strong foundation with the program, you can reconnect with that feeling of serenity that comes from the program just by cracking that literature. Yeah. It wasn't like that for me at first. At first, I needed somebody to sit down and read that big book with me. And that sponsor that I was just telling you about that came up and said, "Hey, I'm going to sponsor you, Bryce." And I said, "Yes." He went and he read the big book with me, and he translated it into ways that I could understand, man. He put it in layman's terms for a guy like me to be able to break down and apply to his everyday life. A passage I use a lot, is 417, man. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. And big piece of literature that I connect with is page 417, you know, from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it says, you know, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. And you know, and I'm paraphrasing, so bear with me, but when I'm disturbed is because I find some fact of my existence, some person, place, thing, or situation unacceptable to me, and I can find no peace until I accept that situation as being exactly as it's supposed to be in God's world, you know? And when I say God, I mean whatever your conception of is that, you know, I carry zero judgment on that. As long as you got a higher power, I'm groovy, man.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
That's all you need, man. When I use that literature, I use that reading when I need that, you know. I can come into work with an absolute shit attitude sometimes, man, and I recognize when I'm doing that. I recognize I'm making things hard on myself for no reason, right? So to kind of counteract that, I will get into the literature and I'll sit down and I'll read that passage as many times as I need to before I find myself in a place of acceptance where I'm like, hey, you know, my acceptance is, you know, I choose to do what I do.
Yeah.
I know some days are going to be good days and some days are going to be bad days, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I'm here. I'm going to have to be here.
Yeah.
How can I bring my best attitude into this? Because I'm going to be the only one. Well, I mean, other people will suffer if I'm walking around with a negative attitude, but, you know, I'm going to suffer the most.
Yeah.
I'm going to suffer the most from walking around with a negative attitude.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to a point in my recovery where I can consciously choose to pull myself away from these things now. You know what I mean? I don't have my emotions dictating how I'm going to proceed over me. And a good way to ground myself is with that reading, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of other readings in the basic text, you know, and I haven't been doing Narcotics Anonymous as long as I have with AA, but that's why I love reading the basic text, man. It's because I'll only go 2 pages at a time every morning. I just read 2 pages, dude. And I pick through, and I try to find a good quote in there, and I text it to my sponsor.
All right, Bryce, hey, hold that amazing thought. One of our producers, he's a normie, and he likes to ask a normie question every episode, so it's the normie question of the hour.
Hey guys, so I got a quick question. So obviously you think, Bryce, you think that weed is a gateway drug. Where do you draw the line? Like, because there's a lot of addicts that will pick up, like, caffeine, for example, or cigarettes, or, you know, what are your thoughts on that?
So I don't think pot's a gateway drug unless you're an addict. You know, I know plenty of people who smoke weed who are just fine, man. But if you got the same disease that I got, let me tell you, man, something like that, it's not going to do it. And, man, as far as the caffeine one, you know, I've never sat around all day doing nothing on account of caffeine. I've never thought I was dying on account of caffeine, and I've heard of some people doing that. But you know, as far as nicotine, man, I quit nicotine. You know, and I don't consider it to be a drug, but I consider it to be a habit that was destructive and it was addictive. But does my life go into shambles because of nicotine? Does, like, you know, it's really weird when you draw the line to where you're going to draw the line at, right? Because I know a lot of people that say, hey, Suboxone isn't clean. Right, which for the normies out there, Suboxone is it's a medication that people use to get off of opiates. And if a normie were to take a Suboxone, they would be off their ass.
Yeah.
They would be loaded, man.
Yeah.
But you know, if a heroin addict takes Suboxone, it just makes them feel all right. You know, and when I say feel all right, I don't mean high. I mean not in full blown withdrawal. And you know, I know a lot of people who use medication, who use Suboxone and successfully got off opiates. And I know a lot of other people who take ridiculous doses of Suboxone and combine it with other medications and purposely try to abuse it to get loaded. So I think the most important thing when we're trying to draw a line is being honest with yourself. Is self-honesty, man. You know when you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. You know, you know, our values might get askew over the course of addiction, but if you're being honest with yourself, you know when something ain't right.
Yeah, I love that. You do good, you feel good. You
Yeah.
do bad, you feel bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's totally, sometimes our addiction makes the wrong feel right. You know what I'm saying? And we end up getting ourselves in a lot of trouble. To our audience that's hasn't even gone into treatment yet, and you, when you get into treatment and early treatment, like the first 24 days, people say you got to chase your recovery like you used to chase the dope sack. And I know that I used to think to people, man, you're crazy, there's no way that can happen. But now, as I've gotten into recovery and I started to feel the progress happening, man, I fell in love with chasing my sobriety, and I do it harder than I did the dope sack. How do you feel about that?
Man, when you feel the program working, you're gonna want to chase your recovery that way. You know,
Amen.
what I came for when I started using drugs. I came for feeling the self-confidence. I came for being able to look you in the eye. I came for being able to say what I came to say. And recovery gave me all of those things, man. Recovery gave me all of those things. Recovery gave me the feeling of being all right with myself enough to be able to look at you and look you square in the eyes and mean what I say when I say it.
Yeah.
You know, it gave me the honesty with myself, and it gave me the ability to be honest with other people, man. It gave me the self-esteem by working the program, you know. Somebody came early on and said, you want self-esteem? To me, when I was pretty early on, they said, you want self-esteem? Do esteemable acts.
Oh, yeah, I love
Pretty simple, man.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. But when you follow it, it works.
Yeah.
It works, and you get what you put into it, man. It's kind of like a curve for me, at least, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you put very little in, you're not going to get very much. But if you put a lot in, you're going to get so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You have to replace all your bad behaviors with good behaviors, you know, with your bad hobbies with good hobbies. You know, for me, I used to think boredom would make me relapse. Oh, I'm bored. Any type of excuse to go out there and get high. But now in sobriety, like 24 hours a day, I have positive things that I do. I've put together a 24-hour day, which is 8 hours of sleep every night, you know what I'm saying? But I've continued to have this positive thing happen every single day. What are some things that you do, some hobbies that you do now that you replace bad habits with good habits?
So I love skateboarding, man, and my addiction stole skateboarding from me. Well, every one of my skate injuries I've been loaded for.
Yeah.
And a big one was the ACL, and I didn't get it treated for a long time. So I managed to get that surgery through recovery, and I got to get skateboarding back in my life. And that was always a huge hobby of mine, and it was a big passion of mine. And while it had a part in putting me in the environment that eventually I started using drugs in, it was also something I immensely wanted to get back through recovery, and I have, you know. And I don't have it back the way I'd like to since the injury, and since how long I waited for that to get the surgery done and whatnot to heal up from that injury. But I still get to skate my life. And while I'm not pushing the envelope the way I'd like to be, I'm incredibly grateful to be able to do that, period. A big one lately that I've gotten into in the past 8 months is fishing.
Yeah.
I've been fishing all the time lately, man. And, you know, the possibilities are endless, man. You know, and I love always having something new to tackle and growth. So yesterday I tried surf fishing for the first time, casting into the surf, and I went out in the morning and I got skunked. And I was like, oh man, that sucks, dude. So then I went out again in the evening with a little bit more information, and I had a great time, man. I caught 3 fish, you know. Like I was chilling.
Yeah, it
was a good time, man. I had stuff you couldn't expect happening to me while I was out there, and I'm learning new techniques, and I'm feeling that personal growth in that matter. I'm also finding peace, man. I'm out there by the water, and a big thing that I connect with the ocean, man.
Yeah, cool.
I connect with the ocean. I love being on the water. I absolutely love it. You know, I like kayak fishing. I like kayaks. I like sailboats, man. I like cruising out on fishing boats, man. I like all that. I like surfing, man. I like being on the water, man.
Yeah.
I like being on the water, dude. And I get to, and it brings me a certain peace when I do that. And what fishing's enabled me to do is just be able to throw my rods in the car and be able to go to one of various spots and just spend a couple hours to really get my own peace, right?
Yeah.
You know, because I do Narcotics Anonymous and I do meetings and I do stuff like that. But you know, at the end of the day, sometimes I need some stuff just for me where I just zone out. I don't got anyone else talking to me. It's just me and the ocean and the moment, the present moment, and I'm fully captivated in that moment. Yeah. You know, I can't do that slow fishing where you're sitting off a pier where you're dropping a line down and you're waiting for something to go like that, for your tip to go like that. I like to do stuff where I'm working the docks and I'm watching and I'm sight fishing for Corvina, or I'm watching for where they're kind of jumping on the surface, and I'm casting on that. And it's enough that it keeps me fully occupied in that moment, but it's not so crazy that I'm not present.
Yeah.
You know, it keeps me so present and gives me a total peace of mind, man. I hope everybody has something that gives them that.
Yeah, you sharing that story right there just put my spirit at peace. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm glad,
you,
man.
I
I'm glad.
love you, bro.
I love you, brother.
Yeah. Hey, you want a hug?
Oh man, always.
So, anyways, I want to talk. We're going to get into being at service, but first I want to talk about. I think this is very important. When we're in our addiction, we put value in the things that don't matter. We kind of bring towards us things that don't matter, and we push away our family, our relationships on things that matter. I want to talk about how recovery ends up switching those price tags back, and now, like for me and my mom are like best friends. We text each other all the time. I know how to treat a woman. I have an amazing relationship with an amazing wife. I'm able to be there for my friends. I'm able to bring good relationships, and this is what brings me joy every day, is to know that I'm an asset now. How has recovery switched the price tags on you, and are you closer to your family and things like that in those type of situations?
I'm very close with my immediate family.
Yeah.
I'm very close with my immediate family. So me and my dad definitely had a rocky relationship, you know. And now we are very close, you know.
love that.
We hang out all the time. We go fishing. We get food. We'll go surfing, you know. And I call him to check in on him regularly. Same with my mom. Yeah, with familial relationships, so it's really tense. They were in the front row for a lot of it with my addiction. They got to see a lot of it up close and personal. You know, and it's the people that are closest to us that get hurt the most, man. So they really had to pay the price for that. So that price tag got flipped. Before I came in, man, I had zero work ethic. I was unemployable. Anyone who tried to employ me, it was horrible for them. And now I've been with the same employer for about 2.5 years, and you know, I show up every day religiously, man.
Yeah.
I don't call out.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
I show up religiously, man. And I bring the best that I have that day, you know. And if I'm not bringing the best that I can that day, I have to stop and take a look, like I talked about with page 417. I have to take a look at why I'm not bringing the best that day, and it's made me to be very employable and enabled me to actually make a career out of something where I came in an entry-level position. And I've moved on to a point where it's become a career for me because of how recovery has shown me how to show up. And that show up that I learned from taking commitments and from sitting on service boards has now expanded into my employment. It showed up in my legal issues. You know, I showed up for probation the way I was supposed to, and I got off probation. You know, I showed up for my for volunteer work the way I was supposed to, and for service work. And when I compiled all that and I came to the courts, I was able to get my expungements, right? So, you know, pretty much all the damage done by my addiction, I've been able to in some manner turn around, you know? There's some relationships that, you know, I'm sure amends aren't going to heal. There's some people that won't respond to me to hear those amends, you know? So, yes, there is still some damage, you know? But for the most part, man, recovery's given me just about everything back, man.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
And the way I see it is the things that I'm not getting back is because my higher power doesn't want me to have them back yet. And I'm in full acceptance of that.
Yeah, your mess is now a message. I love that.
Thank you.
With my whole heart. I love that saying. So let's talk about being at service. You're part of Addicts on Asphalt?
Addicts on Asphalt is just like an event we do once a month. What I'm a part of is outreach.
Okay.
So Narcotics Anonymous, we have the region, which is San Diego Imperial County region. Then we have different areas like Beach area, Central area, North Coastal, North Inland, South Bay, East United, East County, Southeast Barrio, and so we have a whole bunch of different areas, right? So each areas have different subcommittees. The beach area has a subcommittee called Outreach, and I'm the chair of that subcommittee. So what Outreach does is we come and support struggling meetings here in the beach area. So and we do that through literature donations. We do that through showing up and doing caravans to meetings that are struggling, and we do that through announcing meetings. And then once a month, the region, so above my level, because I'm at the area, the region, we organize a road trip once a month. Awesome. To some meeting in the San Diego Imperial County region that could use support, and all the different outreach committees come and show up. And I very frequently am heard announcing that, so I'm sure that's how I announce whatever upcoming ones are at every meeting I attend, you know. And I try to announce struggling meetings in the beach area as well, you know. And I also maintain the schedule for beach area, and I print schedules and I distribute them to meetings. And yeah, it's pretty cool, man. And that was something that I went to a meeting, and a predecessor of mine was there at that meeting, and they said, hey, this is something you should get involved with. And something I learned very early on is that Narcotics Anonymous never said no to me, so I don't get to say no to Narcotics Anonymous.
I love
so
that.
When Narcotics Anonymous comes to me with something like, hey, you should sit on this committee, I say yes. And then, you know, the predecessor who originally wrote me into Outreach, they call it voluntold in Narcotics Anonymous. You're gonna get voluntold to do this. So she moved into her van full time and is traveling the country, man.
Wow. She's got service, huh?
Yeah, she's just, you know, she's just living her best life out there, you know, and she still helps remotely with a lot of the stuff. But, you know, she's seen Narcotics Anonymous all over the country. So, but when she left, that position was going to be vacant. And she said, hey, Bryce, I want you to step in for this. So, I mean, I was freaked out. Like, oh, my God, you want me to chair this committee? But, you know, it's been an amazing experience. You know what I mean? Absolutely amazing experience. And it's really changed my outlook on service. And it's shown me what goes on behind the scenes on an area level, on a regional level, of all the people that are trying to keep Narcotics Anonymous as a fellowship alive and well. And it's put me in contact with some people who are of service in ways I could have never imagined, you know, whether carrying the literature, carrying the message to other countries, and whether really just doing the most to help the still suffering addict, man. And that's like the most noble cause in my book, is helping the still suffering addict, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
And seeing people really doing that much to do that, and it inspires you to want to do more.
Yeah,
always.
You're definitely moving and grooving with recovery, and I love that. So they say you can't take an elevator to sobriety; you got to take the steps, baby.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So what do you got to say? What do you got to say about the 12 steps? I know for me, continually, the step 10, I continue to do moral inventory every single night, because resentments can creep up on you, and they're a killer to an addict. You know, they will take you out. So I continue to do moral inventory. I love step 10. Step 11, I get with my Creator every morning, and I ask for His will and the strength to carry it out. And then I do what we're doing right now. We're carrying the message. How have the steps affected your life?
Step 1 was the most important for me.
Okay.
The absolute foundation, because an addict like me likes to trick myself, man. I like to think like, oh man, you know, when I because I came in and out of rehabs for about 2.5 years before I got it, right? You know, and every time I get out, I get more legal issues and end up right back in, right? But I tried it my way every single time I left until this time, right? And what my way looked like was smoking marijuana typically.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't tell me that marijuana was a drug.
Yeah.
You could not tell me that weed was a drug. You were crazy, man. Like, what? Pot's a drug? Hell no, dude. This is medicine, bro. You know? I was on some shit like that, man. I hear a lot of my clients saying that these days, and you know, and like I want to be angry at them, but I know it's like exactly where I was. And I remember the counselor being angry with me, like, Bryce, they're trying to shake it into my head. Bryce, you can't smoke weed. Look how it ends every time. And I'm like, oh no, it'll be different this time. You know, but that first step experience for me was literally like, hey, I am powerless over every substance, man. And the first one gets me loaded, dude. The first one always gets me loaded. And like, I'd trick myself by periods of using lesser substances where I would, you know, maybe have my life not be totally crap for like 3 to 6 months. But if you look at the end of that 3 to 6 month period, you look at the beginning, Bryce takes one hit off a joint. You look at the end, Bryce is back in legal issues in jail, strung out. Like, what? You know what I mean? And you look at the beginning and the end, that's the cause-effect reaction. When I was able to understand that, I had what I call a lived first step experience, where I knew I can't pick up any drink or drugs. And with that foundation, as far as I'm concerned, having done a good first step, the only way I can fuck off my recovery is by consciously saying, screw this. I'm done. I fully accept the consequences of what will happen if I pick up a drink or drug, and I'm going to do it anyways. Because to hell with it. We're going to burn it all down, right? And then to learn to get out of that screw it steps was the later parts for me, right? And to learn to be okay with myself. Steps 8 and 9 were huge for me. You know, that's when I spoke earlier about recovery giving me that ability to be able to like sit with myself right and be honest and look you in the eyes and say what I mean and have that confidence. That came to me with step 9. I had a very strong step 9 experience. When I read my 8th step to my sponsor, the one who I saw at the meeting that I used to get loaded with, he told me right away, all right, well, you're clear to go make these amends. And my higher power saw it fit that was the first day that I was the secretary at this Saturday night speakers meeting. And I went there and I was secretarying it. So I'm sitting up there at the table in front of the meeting feeling all official and whatnot. And 2 of the people that I just read off that I have to make amends to, and my sponsor just told me, hey, you need to make amends to these people, walked into that meeting. Right? And those people had seen me when I was doing bad, right? So seeing me up there in that meeting, being a service, I feel like kind of opened the door for when I made my amends directly after that meeting for them to take it. And when I left that meeting, I had to walk about 45 minutes home at night to get to my sober living. I was skipping. I was skipping. I felt the full amount of confidence that drugs used to give me.
I love it.
And that was a result of the steps, man. It was a result of the steps that I began to clear up the wreckage in my past and honestly feel like I was on a different footing. I had to honestly feel like I was on a different footing than what I had been before in order to come correct and show up now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you touched on the weed thing too. You know, when I was in my whole life, I smoked weed. My whole life. And I used to think I had to smoke weed to get off of dope. You know what I'm saying? I used to think I had to smoke weed to get off of dope. And when I first went into treatment, I told myself when I got off probation that I was going to smoke weed. But because like you said, the proof is in the progress. When you start to see you start to see the effects of the program, bro, I don't even think about it at all. And honestly, when I think back about even smoking weed, like the obsession for weed, what I think about is like, I'd done a lot of drugs in my life and not one of them made me thought I was going to die, except for like a couple times when I took a bong rip off of weed and I got so paranoid, I'm like, grab my girlfriend at the time, like, babe, I think I'm dying. You know what I'm saying?
I think I'm having an overdose of the store as my wife.
Overdose of what?
Marijuana. I don't know if it had something in it. Can you please send rescue?
Do you guys have fever or anything?
No, I think we're dying.
Okay, how much did you guys have?
I don't know. We made brownies, and I think we're dead. Time is going by really, 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 really slow.
So, I mean, to me, it's a pretty powerful drug, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, Big Bryce, my man with the plan, baby. Hey, today, I love you, bro. I'm so thankful for you to be on the show, man. Your experience and your strength, your hope, and your knowledge is just absolutely amazing. But for somebody out there that's still struggling, that just watching this show right now, and they're saying, man, I really want to go out there, and I really want to try to turn my life around, what is some advice that you would give them right now, today?
Dude, buckle in, man. This is going to be the greatest journey of your life.
I love that.
You know? Yeah. And if you're struggling, hold on to your seat, man.
Hold on to your lug nuts. It's time for an overhaul.
You never have to use even if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you want to.
I love that.
You know what I mean? And that holds true for the addict who's still just getting clean for the first time right now, who hasn't yet got clean.
Yeah.
You don't have to use even if you want to. But, of course, that's through the program.
Yeah.
Right? When we use the program, we don't have to use.
Yeah.
You know? And I didn't know that when I came in.
Yeah.
I did not know that I didn't have to use. In regards to Suboxone, it's a form of harm reduction, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people out there are struggling, you know, and they're not ready to find these rooms right now, you know? And anything we can do to keep these people alive long enough, especially with fentanyl out there, to get to a point where they're willing to kind of see the message that we got going on, man, and find true freedom from active addiction.
I love that.
We need to use those tools, and we can't discriminate and push people away that are doing that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And a big thing that's been big for my humility lately is me and a friend of mine recently started doing a slight harm reduction little thing in our neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing major. It's I got a couple bags in my trunk full of Narcan, clean syringes, and fentanyl test strips, mm-hmm. and some clean injection supplies like, you know, alcohol wipes. I'm still looking for other supplies. It's fairly new. We've been doing this for about a month now. Yeah. And what we do is we walk around our neighborhood giving out supplies to people who are actively using on the streets. Yeah. Right? We try not to ask too many questions, you know. We're not the police.
Yeah.
All we want to do is just put Narcan and clean syringes in the hands of people who need it, right? And fentanyl test strips so they can know what's in their drugs, man. Yeah. Because, dude, this is a horrific disease, man. And I got really lucky that I was using heroin at the time, right? Yeah. But these people using fentanyl, they die, dude. And people who are using drugs that have fentanyl in it, they die, dude. Yeah. And if we can keep somebody alive for another few years, they might have that moment. That gets them here, dude. Yeah. So when we're giving out this fentanyl test strips, people can test their drugs to make sure that that drug that's going to kill them isn't in it. Because it's in meth these days. It's in coke these days. Yeah. And if we got Narcan in the hands of all these people who are out there using and people aren't using alone, they can use this Narcan to turn around an overdose. And somebody might live because of that, man. And that might be the bottom they need to find their way to us, man, and find some true freedom through recovery, dude.
Yeah, it blows my mind how you have to use a test strip to test your drugs now because fentanyl is found in everything. It's an absolute killer, and it is trying to kill you.
Dude, and when we talk to a lot of these old school guys out here, we'll talk to a lot of these older guys who've been on the streets for years, dude, and they'll want to use heroin, but they can only find fentanyl sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, you know, some of these guys will flat out kick before they use fentanyl, and they're so stoked to be able to test their heroin to know. Yeah. And you know, and it's terrifying for the youth, man, because a lot of the youth don't understand the implications of fentanyl, and they see these pills floating around, and they think it's about the same thing as what they were taking that somebody got from a doctor, man. Yeah. And you know, if we can get Narcan in the hands of the youth, man, in the schools, that would be, man. Now I'm just getting like ideological with it, but man, we could save some lives, dude, because the young people dying, man. It's out of proportion, you know?
Yeah, I love that, man. So you listeners that are out there right now listening, man, hey, if you're going to pick up a gram today, pick up the program. Yeah, baby. Hey, Bryce, we love you. I love you. The world loves you. Recovery loves you. You know what I'm saying? And I just want to give you a gift, man. We got you a gift for coming out here and giving your time. And we know you like fishing, so we wanted to get you a fishing pole, and we wanted to get you a huge fish. I'm a fish, man. Thank you, Bryce, for coming on the show.
You can catch fish on something like this, man.
Wow, what an absolutely amazing episode. Hey, if you're young out there and you're struggling in addiction, this is living proof that a young man can get clean and sober and enjoy the rest of his life. Hey, we got to continue to like, subscribe, and smash that bell, baby.
Smash, smash, smash.
Tune in again next week for episode 10. We're going to have an amazing, amazing episode. And if you're in your first 24 hours, I know it's hard, but we got you, baby. Hey, I'm the hope dealer. I'm selling hope, and I'm not selling dope. Let's have a great day. Let's go, baby. So when we smashed that bell ended up having a baby boy.
Ooh, right on, man.
Stay sober. Stay sober. Stay sober, my friends.